Now we get to Leonardo's most famous painting of all. Well, one of them anyway. The Last Supper. The Last Supper is on the wall of a sort of cafeteria in a church called Santa Maria del Grazia. Santa Maria del Grazia. It was an entire facility where the religious would live, and on the wall of the cafeteria, of all places, is where you find the Last Supper. Very similar to what we've seen before in prior Last Supper, in that it is located on the side wall of a cafeteria so that those dining within the space feel as though the Last Supper is taking place, well, in an extension of where they are. The figures are over life size. And Leonardo da Vinci was trying out a new technique here, something he had never tried before, and it didn't work out so well. So from the get-go, the painting, in terms of quality, had issues and began to flake off of the walls. A recent restoration has sort of halted the flaky quality, but it by no means looks as vibrant as it did when he first completed it in 1498. In addition, if you look towards the bottom, you can see that a door was knocked through the bottom center at some point, so there's a bit of damage there. You just have to ignore that. It is, of course, mathematically ordered with Christ's head as the center of the vanishing point. The perspective is perfect. Look at all of the orthogonals, all of the ceiling beams that recede towards the center of the painting, well, towards the head of Christ, deep into the painting to create this true sense of three-dimensional space. Christ is also the focal point of the action. He is the focal point of the action. Notice how the apostles sway and he remains still. Christ is also a perfect triangle. The arch behind him forms a circle. If you extend it, forms a circle with Christ's head in the center. He is set against the light. He is definitely the focal point. I mean, there is no avoiding this one. Here you have all of the orthogonals drawn out so you can see what I'm talking about. I also want you to notice how the painting from left to right is divided into 3 units. You kind of have, if you start on the left, the side wall is 1 unit, the back wall is your 2nd unit, and the wall on the right-hand side is your 3rd unit, with all of the figures set within that space, unified within that space. Notice how the figures sway and react. They react to what Christ is saying. You know, according to tradition, John leans on the bosom of Christ, but not here. In addition, according to tradition, Judas is isolated on our side of the table, opposite Christ. Well, that doesn't happen here either. Leonardo changes things up a bit. These are soft forms. Remember sfumato and chiaroscuro. It's all in use here. Well, this is the moment in the story when Christ says, "One of you at this table will betray me." So the apostles rise from their seats in astonishment. They look at each other. They're pointing. Who? You? Me? I'm not doing it. I'm not the one. Who is it? All except for one. Judas. Judas pulls back from Christ. Look at the left-hand side. You see the guy leaning against the table? He's pulling away from Christ. Whereas right next to Judas, the guy with the white beard, is St. Peter. St. Peter's having a fit. He's lunging forward towards Christ. Like, what are you talking about? And there's John. John is the 3rd figure, set against the window there. Red and blue. And John pulls back gently, painfully so, leaning towards St. Peter. as if to say, God, what is going to happen here? I mean, there's real concern, there's real emotion. Well, check out Judas. His body is in shadow. He leans on the table and he clutches in one hand a money bag, the symbol of betrayal. Remember that Judas was paid by the Romans to divulge the location of Christ. Well, Christ responds to the apostles going, well, who is it? Who is it? By saying, it is he who dips his hand with me into the same dish. Well, look at the hand of Judas that is extended, and it's reaching towards a dish. And then if you look just towards the right-hand side of the dish, you can see the extended arm of Christ. There's a larger detail of it on the right-hand side. They are both reaching for the same dish. So this painting is not of one single moment, but instead it is a sequence of moments. These over life-size monumental figures are so unified. They're unified within the perspective. They're unified within the moments of the story. They're unified in their forms and their shapes to where nothing can be added nor taken away. It's such a tight composition in all ways. You wouldn't want to add anything. That would mess it all up. And you certainly wouldn't want to take anything away, because then it would no longer be perfectly unified. It wouldn't make sense any longer. Typical Leonardo landscape in the background. Here's Mona Lisa. Very famous. Located in the Louvre Museum in Paris today. In case you're interested in whom this really represents, her name is on your word list. You do not have to memorize that. It's just in case you're interested. Lisa di Antonio Maria Gerardini. Now that is an Italian name. A simple, solid, pyramidal form. But what makes her so famous has to do with the sense of movement. You're like, movement? She's seated. It's a portrait. How can she be moving? Well, if you look at her torso, you can see that it is facing, well, off towards our left a bit. Then she seems to turn her body and lean on the arm of the chair a little bit. And notice her head. Her head turns a little bit further than her torso does. Then look at her eyes. Her eyes are darting off to the corner, aren't they? They're a little bit further than the chin, than the head. In other words, if you start at the bottom, it is a slow twist. A slow upward twist. And that is why the Mona Lisa is so famous in the art world. Oh yes, there is sfumato, and there is chiaroscuro, which gives the appearance of that famous Mona Lisa smile. You know, the background, typical Leonardo background, seems a bit odd. An interesting thing about this painting is that after it was completed, after the death of Leonardo, the next owner trimmed the painting about 6 inches in total on the right and left hand sides. So if you look just sort of below her shoulder on the far right, far left, you'll see there are these two sort of semicircles. Those were originally the bases of columns that held a partial ceiling over her head. She's kind of on a back loggia, sort of like a back porch, looking over a landscape. And originally the painting showed a good bit of the column on the right and the column on the left. But since it's been trimmed, it no longer shows that. So it adds to that sort of sense that the Mona Lisa is floating in this nowhere space, this nowhere land. You know, this was his favorite painting. Leonardo da Vinci considered this painting to be his finest accomplishment, and he carried it with him until his death.